Hey Monique, how are you?
Hi, I'm great. I'm great. So
Good
glad,
evening. Yeah,
so,
good.
so glad to be back. And good morning for me.
Absolutely.
Good evening for you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's because our clocks changed here, so we've had a little bit of people not understanding what time. So apologies to those of you that are watching on Facebook in different parts of the world, and you're a bit confused about the new time.
Right.
It's only over here. So, when do your clocks change, Monique? It's pretty soon, isn't it?
Pretty soon. It's coming up. Yeah, I think we're
Yeah,
1 week later than you.
yeah,
So yes, it is coming up. And I had to keep that in mind for today's show, constantly remind myself about that.
yeah.
So yeah, fall is here, fall and winter. And
Awesome.
people are starting to come in. I recognize some people, and I know some people that you know are here. Hi, Pat. Hi, Pat, Patricia, and Lou Cook, Paul Cook, Mandy Croxall, Leanne. Hi, Leanne. So they're just starting
Awesome.
to come in now.
Yeah, thank you for joining everybody. It's great to be back this week on Wednesday again. I just want to quickly talk about tonight's guest before we bring him in the studio.
Yeah.
It's such a privilege for me to have tonight's guest.
Mhm.
For me, um, well, I'll explain. But Paul is Paul Lambillion, I should say. Paul Lambillion is a spiritual teacher, healer, and counselor of international repute. And I always get excited when we introduce people like it's a secret. But we've been advertising all week, Monique, haven't we?
True.
So
We
everyone
sure
knows
have.
we've
Yeah.
got Paul in tonight.
Yeah.
Paul is also a well-published author. I believe he has had up to 6 books. I'm not sure if they're all still available. We'll have to ask him. But How to Heal and Be Healed, Auras and Colors is one of my favorite. And it's fair to say I've got a lot of Paul's books. This is a gentleman that's also really influenced me on my own personal journey. It's
Yes.
inspired me along the way. So it's a great privilege to introduce Paul Lambillion. So I'm now going to pop him in. Good evening, Paul.
Right. Okay, sorry. I was just I was just diverting people to your Facebook page.
Ah,
Oh,
So can you talk about the weather for about 2 minutes?
yes,
It's a pretty good
we
preoccupation,
can.
isn't it?
I can talk about the International Healing Fellowship that I belong to. That you was
Go
one
on
of the
then. Yeah, you
founding.
talk about that. And I'm just going to tell people to go on Facebook.
I love
Your
that.
Facebook.
I love that. This is
Um,
live, everybody. And we're live.
there's nothing like live, is there?
No, absolutely. Well, one of the first things when I first met you, Paul, back in 2001, was the first time I
Yeah.
met you. You said, oh, you know, what would be good for you is to understand about energy and understand healing. And you sent me off
Yeah.
to Margaret and the International Healing Fellowship. And I never looked back from that moment.
mm,
And I've also recently seen that the guys have done a fantastic job of a new website, the International Healing Fellowship website. And it's a fantastic organization. And there's also a part of I think it's the Rays of Light. There's a drop down menu on the website where you can put any loved ones that need healing. There's
Yeah.
quite a
Yeah.
few
Yeah.
members within that group now. So, Paul Lambillion, welcome.
Hi there. Sorry
Hello
about
to
that.
Spiritual Talk. That's okay.
I'm
That's
now,
okay.
I'm now totally focused. Totally focused.
One of the things that we ask when people come on to Spiritual Talk is a little bit about their journey, how
yes.
it all started for them. We'd like to know about you, the person.
Hmm.
Me, the person.
Yeah.
Yes.
How did your journey start? Was it as a child? Was it, did you understand subtle energies as a child that you was different?
Yeah. 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 I've lived like many people in more than one world right since I can remember, really, right from just after the war, when I was born in 45, in North London, amongst the debris of the war. A very strange atmosphere in those years. A lot of
Yeah.
people suffering what today would be called PTSD, or PST, or whatever it is, PTSD. Yeah, traumatic stress disorder, and I always saw light that wasn't, obviously physical, light. It wasn't radiating from the sun or something like that. I was aware of energies and so on. And I used to see things. I was in a very Catholic family, so I used to go to church a lot. As you can see, it's had no beneficial impact, but I did my best. And I used to watch all sorts of things at the mass. And there's one story I often tell. I used to see this old man at the church at mass on Sunday. And one day my mother tried to get me to sit on him. And I thought, I can't sit on this old bloke, you know, because he looked very holy. Because often in Catholic churches, particularly the Irish tradition, you'd have people that were called holy people. They weren't priests, but they were people that prayed a lot, you know, and they'd always be in church. And you'd give them money to pray for you, believe it or not. That was not uncommon. And I said to my mother, I can't sit there because I'll sit on that man. And of course, you know, there was no man. So well, there was, but not you know, fleshed out, as it were. And the consequence of that was I was then subjected to a visit by a nun and a priest, and they told me about the path to avoid evil. And I thought very honoured to be chosen to be told that I mustn't be evil. It was only later when I realised what was going on, that mother was a bit concerned about my rather deviant, you know, perceptions, as it were. So yeah, and it turned out that this old boy had been at the church, you know, years ago before the war, and died actually about 1938. And I forget what his name was now. I mentioned it in a book. I checked it out with one of my relatives to find out who the name was. But you know, that was really from day one. I also had visits, like I still do, you know, and you may well do, from beings that are not they're not passed over humanoids from this world. You know, I had visits very young, from what people describe in abductions, for example. I was certainly under 7 because I was still living. I was still living in North London at that point, so I was probably about 6, coming up 7, and that stayed with me all my life, really. And it's been a blessing and a problem, like anything involving perception can be, if we don't know, you know, what it is and how to handle it. Yes. And but it's not an unusual story. I think it's quite common. I was struck by lightning when I was 17, which kind of gave it a bit of a boost. I don't recommend it, mind you. I think meditation is a much more sound practice, but I had a near-death experience when I was 17. Yeah. And I was hit by a nice little bolt of lightning in a place called Holland-on-Sea in Essex, actually, and and that was quite an interesting experience. And then and I died there very briefly, and then my maternal great grandmother kind of appeared and said, "You've got to go back, son." And it was lovely where I was. It was absolutely beautiful, you know, and I could see this other me lying on the ground in the tent. The amazing thing is, you know, when you move through fourth dimensional layers, you can see things, but you also see through them at the same time. So they're kind of transparent, really. And I could see me on the ground, you know, and I thought, I think I'll stay where I am, but it was not part of my pattern, obviously. And I went back in and was paralyzed and shipped off to Clapton General Hospital. And I recovered, became a celebrity because of that. I was in the national press, and my schoolmates started calling me Sparky, which was rather sweet. You know, and even the girls were curious, but I won't go into that. But I you know, that there was that. And then I went on. I don't want to get too detailed here, but what did I do after that? Yeah, I was a rock and roll singer for a bit, and then in the 60s, then I became a teacher, and I taught for many years actually. Took a brief time out again as a singer, and worked as a comedian and a singer, and then I went back into education. I was trained to be a psychologist, and that was my intent. I worked with kids with what they call special needs, you know, kids that have been chucked out of school or worked in special units. But I by that time, I was trying to deal with what I could really see rather than what I was supposed to be seeing. And I'd taken up meditation and studied with 1 or 2 people a little bit. And I became consumed about healing. When I was a little boy, we used to go to the cinema in London when I was about 5 to watch a movie. You had to queue up in those days. you know, and you'd have two films. You'd have a black and white one, and if you're lucky, you've got a colored one with cowboys and stuff. And I used to sit in the cinema wondering how I was going to save the planet. I'm not kidding.
Oh,
I was a little boy, and this happened many, many times, even up to adolescence. What am I going to do? What job do I have to do to save the world? Honestly, I'm not at all joking. And I always freeze, even now, when I see photographs or film of a nuclear explosion.
Wow.
And I understand why that is. I understand why that is, because it's to do with Atlantis. That's what that's to do with.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely. You know, so I eventually one day, with a mortgage and children, decided to pursue a life of meditation, healing, and understanding. You know what it was all about, and that was about 1980 something. I don't know when, probably early 80s. I think, you know, and that's it really. And then from then on, it was just a question of seeing what happened. I got involved in the spiritualist movement for a while, as you know. I met and worked with many wonderful people, you know, quite amazing, astounding people. Often just once or twice, you know, not for a long time. I get one gig with them, you know, and then it was with somebody else, and it was almost like being a thermometer and being calibrated to kind of, you know, understand what was going on. And you know, I read a few books because I thought, well, I might as well. I can spell, you know, so I'll write a book or two, but not out of a sense of I'm wonderful, because I really don't think that in that sense, but out of a sense of wanting to share things with people.
Yeah.
And the most wonderful thing when you write a book is when somebody writes you and said, "I'm so pleased I read that in your book because it's helped me understand something," you know, and that is what it's about, I think. And so I've written a few books. I might try and do one more before I finally, you know, evaporate or decompose, whatever it is we do. But you know, that's enough, isn't it? I think about me. And in that sense, I don't actually find myself terribly interesting, but I'm so used to doing all this stuff that I spew it out like a record. But I'm immensely interested in human beings, and I would do anything to cuddle everybody on the planet right now if it were at all feasible. But because that's what people need right now, I think, more than anything, don't they? And I when I strayed into mediumship, I never wanted to be a medium person, because I felt it was too defining. I wanted just to be, you know, what I am, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
And but I did, of course, you know, delve into that area of things quite a bit, and I still do what they call trance mediumship, as you know, and I use my clairvoyance quite a lot, but I tend to use it much more in a guidance counselling mode. You know, I will communicate dead grannies if people really want it, and I can do it quite well, but it's not my forte. I'm more interested. You know that, Paul. You know, I turn up and do a demonstration of clairvoyance, and I'm standing there thinking about when's the tea coming, you know, and there'd be somebody sitting in the front row that get all huffy because they hadn't got a message for the first time in 6 weeks. And I used to think, for God's sake, what is this about? Because what they should be asking is not what's in the message, but why did I get a message? Not what's the message telling me. That's trivial, you know. It's fun, and it can be very, very amazing when people do that. But equally, it's about, why did I get messages? What is this telling me about reality, about being? And many years ago, I worked when I was working as a singer. I worked at holiday camps, and I worked with a lot of famous comedians of the day. You won't remember them, people like Tommy Trinder and, you know, Roy Castle and people like that. And
Roy Castle.
yeah.
Remember Roy?
Roy
And
Castle.
I worked with stage hypnotists, which was amazing. Watching some of them, and they didn't know how they did it, most of them either, I can tell you that. But I also worked with a mind reader.
Oh,
It was called the Great Vogel. He's the most peculiar bloke I've ever met in my life. I mean, if ever there was an ET, he was earning a few quid on the earth. That was it, you know. And but it was astounding what he did. It was astounding, and I couldn't work out how he did it. And I watched him. We used to do 2 shows a night, you know, I was comparing the show, and I used to stand in the wings watching this bloke, and I couldn't work out how he fiddled it. It was amazing how he could read people's minds. But maybe like Houdini, there was more to him than meets the eye, because Houdini, had gifts way beyond trickery, and he worked with elementals and stuff to do this. So so it's been an interesting sort of thing altogether. So I've enjoyed the ride, you could say.
Yeah.
And I was one of the few rock singers in the 60s that didn't smoke pot and all that stuff. But I didn't like the taste. And anyway, I knew enough to know that things like drugs were used in the mystery schools simply to give students a perception of what might be possible, but then they had to train to do it without the dope.
Yeah.
And that was what interested me. I doing it without the dope. So my only recourse to anything of an entertaining substance is the occasional malt whiskey, but I don't really think you can count that, can you? I don't have it on the cornflakes or anything,
That's reassuring.
It's just as a refined evening, gargle. But I found lately actually something interesting. I'm getting a lot of visits from what they now call interdimensional beings. This is the in phrase. I'm seeing quite a lot of them around. I'm not entirely sure why at the moment. I think most of it's benign. I think some of it's curiosity.
Yeah.
But there is something, and I'm always been convinced about this. There's something very unique about the human soul, and I mean that. I mean that most sincerely, folks. I mean that, and there really is something quite unique about the human soul and the human spirit, and I think I mean that in a cosmic sense. I don't just mean local, like in our solar system, and I think that what's going on here. And the experimentation and the exploration that's operating here is of a fascination way beyond this solar system and way beyond this galaxy, and that may be why I'm seeing some of these creatures sort of hovering about. I sometimes ask them what they're doing, but they don't really give you much info. But maybe that's to come. I don't know.
I mean, I've found there's been a lot of people that have had increased phenomenon. A lot of people.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, because years ago the old spiritualists used to talk about the veil. You had all. I mean, I love some of the old Victorian medium speak. And it's quite prosaic, and they talk about the veil. And I remember one guy who was an editor actually. He edited Auras and Colours. He edited that. He was a lovely guy.
Okay.
Discovered the manuscript, Jonathan Livingston Seagull, for example, and had it, and was the first guy to publish it in the States.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a super editor, because when you write the sort of stuff we do, you've got to have a sympathetic editor. It's no good having a general editor who hasn't got a clue what you're talking about. And he was brilliant.
Of course.
And he said to me one day, we had lunch in London, and he said to me, the veil is getting thinner. He said it with that kind of gravitas, veil is getting thinner. I was waiting for Kenneth Williams to appear dressed as a ghost or something. But I take his point, and he was right. And the veil is the kind of ultimate frequency in the astral, or the psychic plane, the emotional plane, or you can call it the fourth dimension maybe. And it's where all the junk is. It's like an asteroid belt, and that's being cleaned up right now.
Oh.
And therefore it's making contact with the higher realms in some ways easier, and more normal, because it's normal, for goodness sake. We should be to your mum and dad. I talk to my mum and dad every day, particularly if I'm making a muck up in the kitchen or something. So it is getting more. I think the access is becoming easier. Yes, I think so. But that brings with it its own issues. Because as you sometimes have to be careful what you say to people still. When giving people information, you can't just blurt it out. It has to be, to a certain extent, filtered. I think yes, it's getting the contact with higher levels is becoming much more possible, I think, and it should be everybody. And if you go back to Atlantis, in the temples, a temple was a place where the soul could rest peacefully, where it could safely be. And the idea of churches and temples and all this sort of stuff was that you went there and visibly had contact with the divine. And even the buildings were designed that way, with spires and steeples to create vortexes. Everything was like this. In Atlantis, that was what we did. You went and spoke to your ancestors. And you have echoes of that with the North American natives and people like that. They still have a kind of an inkling of that in the way that they practice their own traditions. And you get it sometimes in the Far East, where they still venerate age. If you go to communities like in China and India, they still venerate age and wisdom. And we were meant to talk to our ancestors. The Hawaiians, the Kahunas did it. Everybody did it. And we've lost that, but it's coming back. And it's coming back, I think, fairly rapidly, as a possibility. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you think what we're doing now, I can remember back in the early 80s, where people used to treat me like I was some kind of, I don't know, demonic being. And they'd put things through my letterbox from certain evangelical churches, about me working for the devil. And I had them under my windscreen wipers, and this was not uncommon. And that's not that far back. I'm talking about the 80s.
Yeah.
Into the early 90s. It was not uncommon. You couldn't advertise in a local paper to say you were a healer or a clairvoyant. They wouldn't accept it.
Yeah.
And so there's been a big shift already.
Yeah.
Massive shift. And it's going to get more so. It's like a geometric progression. It's sort of opening out like a big sort of possibility, I think. So I want to hang around and see what else is going to happen if I can.
Yeah.
Unless the good Lord decides it's time for me to go and watch Tottenham win every week at a higher level.
Yeah. Look, you could be here for a while.
I don't know about that. I sometimes, when I wake up in the morning, I think, oh well, I'm here again. I think.
Love that.
Yeah, I'm here again. Oh well, better get on with it, I suppose. Get up, have a cup of tea, see what the world's doing, And I still work a fairly busy schedule. Yeah, it's not always easy, but I try to do what I can.
Yeah.
You're still teaching, holding classes.
I do them. I mean, they're all on Zoom at the moment,
Yeah, of course.
And one of the interesting things is that people have made new friends on Zoom. I find that's really, do you find that?
Oh yes.
Making new friends, and like there's someone from New Zealand, chatting to someone from Bognor Regis or something, and someone from Norway. I mean, I did this Friday morning meditation thing, as you know, during lockdown, and it was an open thing. And I think we had 11 different countries one Friday morning, I counted, which I thought was delightful,
Yes.
And there were one or two people that didn't speak English, but they just, picked up on what we were doing best they could. And and I'm still doing that. I think teaching is probably my main thing, to be perfectly honest. Best sharing what I know, and trying to. The art of teaching is not about what you know, though, is it? That's part of it, but it's about enthusiasm, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Don't you think so?
Oh yes.
It's about enthusiasm. Don't you think it's? When I was a school teacher, actually, that was interesting. I don't know on which web page it was. It's to do with this. Somebody said, "Oh, I can't wait to hear from him. He taught me English." Now that always sends a shiver down my spine. And she said something like, "But he was an engaging and lovely teacher." So I was, when I got to the end, I was a bit more relaxed about it. I think I love teaching, and anyone can read a book, and anyone, you can get, these days you get information anyway, can't you? But
Paul, sorry to interrupt you, but can you see your screen? It was Carol Phillips who you used to teach. Do you remember Carol?
Well, do you know, Carol, I do apologize if you're there. but I can't remember. I tend to remember people visually more than by name. So, I can recognize someone but facially after donkey's years. But this, you will experience this. I was in Albury once with my family, and we were just walking up to the coast. We'd had fish and chips, which is the best fish and chips in the world at Albury. If you come to England, you've got to go to Albury, have fish and chips.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, it's the best fish and chips on the planet. The only thing is you have to wrestle with the seagulls, but apart from that, it's brilliant fish and chips. And we were walking along, and my boys, I don't know how old my boys were. My daughter was probably about 14. The boys were probably about 8 and 9, something like that. And this guy came up with his wife, and he came up and he said to me, "Hello, Paul. How lovely it is to see you. What are you doing here?" And and all this stuff, and then they walked off. And my oldest son Dominic, who's still a bit of a comedian now, and he said, "No, who are they then, Dad?" I said, "I haven't got a clue." I know they are. And I'm not famous or anything, but it's interesting how the past comes back to get you, and in ways like that. But I've bumped into several former pupils. What is most discerning is one of them who went on to become a professor at university. He's retired as well, So when your pupils are all retired, then it does get frightening, I can tell you. But there you are, making people wobble here.
But don't you think, Paul, having that teacher experience also helped you later on teaching what you do now?
I think. I
can speak personally. You certainly engage me. I've done many workshops, and I love how you've come on here tonight and you kind of underplay what you do and the effect that you have on people.
I have one fault that I'm often criticised for, and that is that I don't take praise very well.
Yeah.
And it's a fault I don't mind having, but I get embarrassed by being praised too much. But what I do believe is that the enthusiasm in education is everything.
Yeah.
And if you think back to your own school days, the teachers you remember are the ones who really engaged with you and had enthusiasm for what they were doing, even if it wasn't your favorite subject. It sort of rub off a bit, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And I like the word enthusiasm comes from the Greek entheos, which means to be in God, which is very interesting, isn't it? And so I think that you've got to know your stuff, of course, but I say anyone can read a book, and when you're teaching in anything and in this kind of field as well, it's having enough, conveying enough to the student to know that they'll carry on doing it when you're not around. It's no good them relying on you. You can't do it for them. You can show them and help them and support them, but then they've got to do it, haven't they? They've got to work at it. And I think that's where the teacher's enthusiasm comes in. The other thing, I was planning, of course, a bit of today actually as well, that I'm doing in a couple of weeks via Switzerland. And the other thing that teaching helps you, of course, learn is structure. How to structure things a bit. Yeah. How you can work through a process, how you can link everything together, and in a day or a weekend or whatever it is you're doing. So it has its benefits, yeah. And you also learn you always get somebody stroppy, as well as most of them are nice, but you always get the stroppy one somewhere.
There's always one difficult one.
Yeah, and they're the greatest gift of all, actually, because you have to really work hard. What it's like when you're giving information, and they say, "I'm sorry, I don't understand the word you're saying." No, that's never happened to me. And you're sitting there, and there's blood coming out of your pores, and you're getting all this lovely information. They're saying, "Oh no, love, no, that's not me. Definitely not me. No." And that's why I began my last book with a chapter about how people had accused me of being a fraud. When actually the information later on proved to be really excellent. But they say, "Oh no. It wasn't my dad's right leg that was missing; it was his left leg." Stuff like that. Or So yeah, but I think enthusiasm, and I think in anything that we do, enthusiasm is important, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Not all the time, but underpinning everything anyway.
So just to be clear to those that are listening in tonight, because we have such a varied amount of people that watch our lives on pre-record as well. We get
Hi,
so
Ben.
many comments. But I just want to reiterate, you see subtle energies, you also see the aura, you do auric assessments, you see that the energetic body as well, you see all those layers. And
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of people that don't see that. And to me, that's quite special. And it certainly inspired me over the years to delve more into that. And it's something that I enjoy doing, working with the aura as well as part of what I do. I mean, again, just as a question, what I'm trying to say is people would like to know more about the aura and how you work in that way, Paul, as well.
Yeah.
I know, Monique, we had that same, we were talking about that earlier, weren't we?
Yeah, just before we came to air. Yeah, we were.
I think the important thing is to understand as far as we can, what the aura is.
Yeah.
What there are two extremes in the human being. The deeper extreme is the physical personality that you and I happen to be at the moment, which is a very temporary experience in the scheme of things.
Yeah.
I loved the phrase. It's Deepak Chopra said, I am a confluence of all the forces of the universe pretending to be Deepak Chopra. I think that's wonderful, a way to sum it up. But you've got the sort of personality, and then you've got the divine, the absolute, the infinite. But in between that, in our journey into consciousness, we, for whatever reason, we decided to kind of leave the perfect and the blissful and the eternal. Hence stories like Adam and Eve and all the rest of it in the Garden of Eden. And we decided to gain knowledge. And so to gain knowledge, we had to develop mind. The Hindus call it chitta, mind stuff. And we had to develop mind. As soon as we developed mind, we were in trouble.
Yeah.
And the reason we were in trouble was mind always wants to separate things. It wants to see the difference between. And as a consequence of that, we had experiences that grew, and we developed a layer of mind, which we call the mental body, which is made up of primarily the subconscious, but there is another layer of the conscious mind, which is tiny compared with the subconscious. To give you an example, we process about 11 billion bits of information a second, and we're aware of about half a dozen of those, probably. So that's what the mental body is, and then we develop feeling to give different qualities to our experiences, and so that was the psychic, emotional, astral level. It's only called astral because it looks like stars and stuff, really. And then through all of that development, it's a bit like diving into a pool. Of course, we had to work through energies and forces, and so there was an energetic body, and what matter is, where the personality now exists, you and I exist, is basically frozen light. It's like light that's almost frozen. It's at such a low frequency, and our whole job was to dive in, like into a pool, and then come back up again. But when we got down here, we liked it so much, we thought we'd play about with it a bit, and then we forgot that we dived in the first place.
Yeah.
Aura reflects that, and all these layers, which the mind interprets as colors, are actually frequencies. What the mind does, it says, right, well, we'll call that green, we call that yellow, we call that pink, we call this rose. But it's merely the mind's way of interpreting the different frequencies and the different layers that are what make us up. And what fascinates me with the background in psychology is how useful that is if you're helping people.
Yeah.
It's massively helpful, because when you look at people at that level, you stimulate them at that level. If you look at the higher levels of someone, you stimulate. That's why people like being around psychics and mediums and stuff, because you stimulate that in them. It's wonderful. They can feel it. They might not be able to see it, but they can feel it, and they think, isn't it great being with this person?
Yeah.
Give us a message. No, that's not really it. They want to be with you. And the Russians do a lot of research on this, because I've had my brushes with the Secret Service. I won't go into that too much, but they recruit people like us if you're not careful. And I was offered a lot of money at one stage, and there were days when I think perhaps I should have taken it. But but I didn't want to get into the Ingo Swann, stuff, and because I think it's corrupt and it's actually unethical as well. What they call remote viewing.
Okay.
But
that still goes on today, Paul, doesn't it? I know the CIA have still got a program with that.
Oh, I've been approached. I had my phone tapped when in the old days when we had landlines. Remember, I had my phone tapped a lot. Yeah, and I could tell you which words triggered it as well. Because the tap, even in those days, there was a bit of AI, and certain words would trigger the tap, and you could hear it click. And it was just like when somebody picks up an extension, and you're on the other phone years ago. And but I wouldn't play ball. But that's the whole episode there that I had to be a bit careful about. Yeah. But I was not the right kind of person. Me, a spy? You've got to be joking. So I couldn't keep anything secret for 5 minutes. But it wasn't about that. It's about they've done tremendous research into using psychics, and it's still going on. It's going on in Germany. One of the key places was actually Odessa, which I think is in the Ukraine. Yeah. The Russians did a hell of a lot of work now. Yeah. The Americans at Stanford University, for example, and I know through a contact in the Foreign Office the Ministry of Defense. No, it's Ministry of Defense. That I know through two contacts there that yes, there is a program of using psychics, but there are dangers in training people that way as well.
Absolutely.
If you don't develop the spirit and its relationship with the soul, it's a bit like taking a dog for a walk in a busy street with no lead, that's not been trained. And this is what they do. And so you end up with people having the most awful emotional and psychological problems as a consequence. But
yeah. Was it you that actually told me about the Psychic Warrior book?
Well, there's several. There was several. There was the Psychic Warrior. I can't remember them now. The best book on it, actually, I think, was written by a chap who's a little bit controversial because he claims to be a black magician, but a chap called Tim Riffat. And he wrote a very good book on remote viewing. And there've been several. But the main character was a guy called Ingo Swann, who was an artist. And they used him extensively in the training in America, particularly. And it's just a form of astral travel, really, that they do. The danger is it's unmanaged, and they wander off to all sorts of things. And then we get into other things like time-space continuums, which, they've already mucked it up in 1940. When was it? 47, was it? Or was it 1943 with the Philadelphia experiment, when they mucked around.
Yes.
Yeah.
Created many of the problems we now have, actually.
Oh, right.
Because there were 3 experiments there. And I don't think it was in Philadelphia, actually. I think it was somewhere else. But I think it was actually further down the coast. But and that was they were using psychics and electromagnetic fields, and that very dangerous and created all kinds of problems, which we're still experiencing right now. But that's another matter. And I always believe that the most important thing anyone can do is to learn meditation, because it's like learning to drive properly.
Yeah.
And then you can do all the other stuff, as well. But meditation is like learning how to drive, and with a really good instructor in a nice Mercedes or something. And then everything else fits together properly, I think. But that's just my view. And I would say to people, go away and learn meditation or something, and then come back, and I can help you maybe. But it's the key right now. And it's the greatest. I think it's the greatest inoculation you can have at the moment, actually.
Yeah.
Because like COVID, operate through karma. They don't operate without a karmic pattern to them. So we're not all being attacked by this hairy monster that's waiting to get us. They don't understand things like karmic processes. They don't understand radiance. They don't understand anything but some ridiculous injection, which is never going to ever, in my opinion, have any lasting effect and in fact is probably detrimental because it causes attenuation of the virus, which makes the virus more adaptable and therefore will infect more people. So a vaccine of this kind is nonsense in the long run. It might have a short-term apparent effect, but it's energetically and spiritually crazy what they're doing. It's just crazy. I can't believe how people have signed up to this, other than they've tapped into this lower astral stuff, which they use all the time, which is kind of black magic, really, and to frighten people, scare the life out of them.
Yeah.
And nothing good ever comes out of fear. Never make a decision when you're afraid. The only thing that comes out of fear is not fear, and courage.
Yeah.
But fear itself is just destructive, but they don't understand karmic patterns, do they?
Yeah.
So it's up to them, isn't it?
Yeah. The individual, absolutely.
But people like you bring hope into people and a sense of there's more to life than there appears to be.
Yeah.
And that's so important.
Absolutely.
I mean, to go to church, I was brought up as a Catholic, they used to have 2 collections at a Catholic church. You had to pay to get in and pay to get out. I mean, it was ridiculous. There were 2 collections. They used to call it, what was it? Not a withdrawing collection or something like that, And I thought, God, I've already put 6pence in. What else do they want, But religion, because it became so crystallized, can't really do that, and so it's going to come to individuals and groups who naturally come together, like on something like this, where the group organically forms around an idea, but you don't have to have a tattoo on your left elbow or something and give all your money and all that. Or am I saying the wrong thing? Are we having a collection at
No, it's okay. We won't. I'm sure Facebook won't shut us down.
Get your money up, folks. It always tickles me with the evangelists that you get, the tele-evangelists, and you see the credit card things going along the bottom. And give us your money. I'm praying for Mrs. Jones in Alabama who's got a bad back. All this stuff. Oh, it's hilarious, isn't it? And people give money for that, when they could be giving it to the likes of you and me. There you go.
But that's all based around fear, though, again, isn't it? It's all based around
fear. It's all fear. And what is fear? Fear is an absence of love. And any great spiritual teacher, any good spiritual teacher, even a bad one, will tell you that love is the core of any. The reason people want to hear from their loved ones was because they love them mainly, or they wish they had loved them, or they wish they'd loved them more, or they wish they'd been loved. That's what motivates them. And okay, they might want a message about whether they should do this or do that, but it's love that motivates. Yeah. And a medium once said to me at Stansted Hall, because I talked there briefly, and he said, "Oh, I work on a vibration of love." And I looked at him, I said, "Is there anything else?" Which was a bit cheeky, wasn't it? Really? But what else is there? I was preparing this course today, and one of the core parts of it actually is about mastery, and it is about connecting with love and really connecting with it to the exclusion of everything else, and that's a big task.
Yeah. There
was a bloke in Nazareth 2,000 years ago had a go and and tried to show people that actually it is possible, guys. Whether you believe he lived or not doesn't matter. The story's right, and if people read the Sermon on the Mount and practice it, we'd all be in heaven tomorrow.
Yeah. So, Paul, we've been going 45 minutes almost, and we've not normally.
You want to get rid of me now?
No. Normally, we go to questions around about the 20-minute mark from the audience.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
No need to apologize.
We're just sitting here. I'm absolutely loving this, Monique and I.
Absolutely. Just a wealth of information.
This isn't gin and tonic, by the way. It is actually water.
It's the same as this is definitely coffee in here.
Mind you, that'd go down well now because it's 8:45. So I mean,
it is,
the bar's open in England.
Yes.
We could have a little G&T. Is this spirit after all? Kind of.
To be honest, Monique, I mean, whenever I do Zoom you always seem to be heading down to the bar at the harbour. So,
no,
that's what we do out here in Vancouver.
Well, you have to experience all the aspects of life, don't you? So you know, it's good to sample that. One of my greatest teachers used to smoke like a trooper, and his favorite drink was Turkish coffee with about 5 spoons of sugar in it. You know, I mean,
Wow.
and this guy was more spiritual than anybody else I've ever met, I think, probably.
Wow.
You know, and he just lighted a fag, and it was like a meditation watching him smoke. You know? But he was older than I am now, and he could outpace me on a walk anywhere.
Wow.
Amazing. He said, this is a gift of God, you know.
Yeah.
God, it's God's paper, God's tobacco, and he smoked that black, you know, sort of Morocco or Algerian tobacco, and the black stuff, you know, it looked like it'd been burnt to death before you even lit it, you know.
Yeah.
And wonderful to watch him. And he said to me one day, he said, tell me, he used to call me Kayla. He said, where do you go to find peace? And I thought, I'm going to be really holy and spiritual. And I said, well, I go for a walk in the woods, you know. I go for the forest. And I you know, I thought I'd really put it on to impress him. And he looked at me and said, oh, that's easy. Anyone can do that. And you know where he took me to meditate? I'm not lying, Hyde Park Corner, with all the buses going past. And he said, when you find peace here, you've hacked it, my boy.
I believe it.
Thought peace was about being in the forest, you know, and all that stuff. But I got what he meant. You know, peace is an inner process, not an outer one. But I was a bit naive in those days. Still am, probably. Sorry, you want me to shut up? I will do that.
We're going to fire some questions at you from people that have kindly sent you some questions. So I'm not sure where to start. As one that's just caught my eye straight away. Can you see that, Monique?
Yeah.
I'm going to put my glasses on. Hang on.
Well, we'll read them to you, Paul, if you like. That helps.
JMP.
Does Paul have any knowledge of the various pyramids around the world and what their purpose was originally? Yes and no. I wouldn't claim to be an expert on that. Some people like there's an American guy who runs the Giza Death Star pyramid, or the Giza Pyramid Death Star, or something like that. I forget his name now. A very erudite guy who knows far more about that kind of stuff than I do. What I can tell you is that part of them at least was developed for initiation. There's no question about that in my mind. They were developed for initiation processes, and they were also for opening interdimensional doorways, you know, and that kind of stuff, so that the soul can move from one dimension to another fairly easily. I mean, you know, without catching the equivalent of a number 49 bus to go to Sirius or something. It was, you know, internet. But that is my knowledge. You know, when I look at pyramids with my limited knowledge, you can actually see that happening now. But it requires people of a certain belief system to be focused in a certain way to make it sublimely active. This is why North American, again, natives would never do a special dance unless they were convinced that all the people in it were in the right mindset for what they were trying to achieve, a ritual. And I think that's true of that, but I wouldn't claim to be an expert. And I'm trying to remember the guy's name now. Oh gosh, can't. If it comes before the end, I'll bring it up. But I'm not an expert on that. There are people who know far more about that than I do.
Mm-hmm.
Just following on from that, we have another question here from Effie. Paul, didn't they have stones entrenched into the pyramid so they could develop portals?
Quite possibly. I honestly don't know.
I think I saw something like that recently, talking about that.
It could well be. That you've got to remember that the physical pyramid is only a part of what is there. There are, if you like, etheric structures that are far bigger than the physical structure of the pyramids. And there's all sorts of stories about the capstone, for example, and all of that. But I'm not an expert on that, you know. I really think that's for other people to talk about. What is important is that that the pyramid has the Giza pyramids have a direct link with Orion's belt, and you can see that it's exactly the same formation. And I find that very interesting because not far from Orion's belt, you have Sirius, which is the most important star in terms of human evolution spiritually. It's like a kind of trigger point for human consciousness. Not the physical planets of Sirius, but the light that comes through the three stars. We now know that there are three stars there, but only one visible. And there is an alignment with the pyramids to that. But that's a big story, I think.
Well, as a question here from Paul Cook that follows nicely from that.
All right.
Can you tell us about Heartstar?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can. Yeah. Heartstar is actually a name for a group of entities that seem to that they have a vibrational connection with Sirius on a spiritual level. And esoterically, the unfoldment of wisdom on this planet was always managed by the vibration of Sirius, initiation and raising of consciousness. The Heartstar Brotherhood, I'd agreed before I was born. I don't remember this, mind you, but I agreed before I was born to work with them in a sort of a trance state. And so I developed that from about 1984, I think it was, something like that. And I used to practice every Wednesday night for 7 years, even over Christmas. And I wasn't quite sure what it was all about, and I wasn't always convinced about it, and I was reluctant to do it in the early days. But I was told by a medium called Gordon Higginson, who was very famous at one stage, that I had, and I wrestled with it, and I eventually did it, and it seems to help a lot of people, and they help me with my teaching as well. They help me get things straight sometimes, and they seem to help a lot of people, and I still channel them, as you know, once every 4 or 5 weeks on Zoom for people. And what is so, for me, so valuable about it is that it's totally in tune with my own sort of feelings about things, and it's about empowering people and helping them understand how they're put together and how they can engage with their progress as a soul. And I find that marvelous, you know. So does that kind of help? That answer, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. It's I guess for the average person in the street to understand that you're working in that way, sometimes a lot to process. I mean, for me,
yeah.
I'll just say I know I've seen Heartstar, I've seen them channel work through you, I've seen them blending in and out of your energy. So for me, you know, you don't.
There's a group of them. They there was a famous medium called Mary Duffy that I don't know if you remember, but she was very famous. And once she came, I was working with her in the early days of doing the trance work with them. She sat with me and I said, look, can you watch and tell me what you think and, you know, what's going on and all the rest of it. And at the end, she said to me, that was really, really interesting and so on. But she said, I've never seen a group of people channel through one person before. And it was like they swapped places. And the people that have been regularly dealing with me in that mode can sort of tell the difference, you know. I only know something nice has happened when I come out of it all, and I feel really, really good, you know, in that space. But I only do it because it seems to help people in a way that maybe on my own, just as me, I don't. But there's a very strong link here, and I gave a lecture to a bunch of psychologists once, Jungians they were, and one guy said to me, well, how do you know it's not your own subconscious? And I said, I don't know whether it's my own subconscious. I said, in point of fact, on another level, we're all part of each other anyway, so I don't see what the problem is. What matters to me is by their fruits shall you know them. You know, what is it useful? Does it inspire? Does it, that's the bottom line, as they say. So, but it's just connecting with, you know, minds on another level that can help us on this level. It's a form of mediumship, I suppose. And I'm sorry I got the giggles now because I don't know if you ever saw the film, Woody Allen's film, I Love Rome, I think it's called. So it's a fabulous film, and his wife is telling him off a lot, and he says, if you're channeling Freud, I'd ask for your money back, you know. And I think it's something humorous about trance channeling, because I watched a lot of it, and I'm not convinced by most of it. I saw one or two people I thought were brilliant, but I thought the majority were delusional, I have to say.
Oh.
Because, yeah, I don't think they were sort of channeling anything on a particularly high level. But occasionally I'd see somebody think, wow, that was impressive. And you can feel it, can't you, immediately? You know?
Yeah.
Oh, this is something special here. And the funny thing is, you'll find they've got about 6 people listening. And then you go near somebody else who's got a theatre full of people, and you think, I think it's a load of drivel. So, you know.
Yeah.
So never be deceived by large numbers. It can be an unkind friend. Sometimes I'll do a group and it's only 6 or 7. I'll do another one that's 30, 40. It depends. And I learned that early on, that sometimes there's only a few that will connect, and sometimes it'll be a lot, and it all depends.
Yeah.
But many are called, but few are chosen, as they say.
Yeah. There's so many questions. I apologize to anybody if I've missed anybody. I saw.
No, I don't know the lottery numbers, by the way. If anybody.
No.
I always say that. You know, when you're on a call and they say, "Is there anything else I can help you with?" You know, when you had to phone up about your internet or something, and I say, "I don't suppose you know the lottery numbers for the weekend, do you?" And you get all kinds of interesting reactions, like, if I did, I wouldn't tell you it's the most common one. You know? Anyway, sorry, I digress.
You're right, it's fine. It's fine. Another question, talking about the aura.
Stephanie Lewis.
From Stephanie.
Can the colors change? Can colors change around people? One
all
day
the time.
Yellow next to pink.
Every moment. Your aura is your feelings and your thoughts and your soul and your being. And every time you change your thinking, anytime you change your reaction, every time you change your experience, your aura changes. And it's like a kaleidoscope, a coat of many, many colors that you can recognize and colors that you can't recognize. I sometimes say to people, I don't know what color that is. The nearest I can think of is sort of silver or something, you know. And they're changing all the time. And as I'm speaking now, if you were to tune into my aura, you'll see flashes of purple, flashes of yellow, bits of green floating about. Because the aura moves, like you move, like your thinking moves. So, yeah. And of course, you know, if you get angry, the old red flushes up a little bit, you know, and you're in the red mist for a bit. But when you take a few deep breaths, it calms down and the other colors become more visible. And it's changing all the time, you know. And when people say to me, I've got a lovely green aura, I get worried, because I know that's not my aura they're looking at if it's all green. You know, there's something else going on, because the aura, that's where the coat of many colors for Joseph comes from. All those notions of, you know, splendid colors and so on, drawn on Indian temples and you know, in Guatemala, there's amazing drawing in Guatemala of an aura around Virgin Mary, and yes, it changes all the time. And if you're with someone you love and you say, I love you, wow, you want to watch the roses and the pinks go. And then if you say to them, will you marry me, the roses and the pinks flash like mad. When they say no, then the red comes up, and then a bit of purple, you get depressed because it's a bit dark. You know, it's happening all the time. And what you have to do is a bit like taking a scan. When you're looking at an aura, you have to kind of do a slice, like a freeze frame.
Yeah.
And that's what you work with. And that's an assessment. And that's what I love doing. I love doing that freeze frame. And then I look at the colors, look at the sequence, and you've got something to work on then. You know.
Because I'm sure I've read somewhere, and I believe you've told me as well, that you work with.
Don't blame me.
Well, you have influence of Mr. Ledbetter. Is that true, Paul? Have you?
Oh, what? Sorry,
Mr. Ledbetter himself, Mr. C.W.
Yes, absolutely.
Ledbetter.
It's in my last little book I did, which is a little of a light book, really. But yeah, that's an interesting story. It was I was actually someone was coming to see me, because I used to do, well, I still do, I suppose, a little bit what they call psycho-spiritual counseling with people, and this girl turned up one day and she had a copy of an article from a color magazine. And it was a picture of one of the drawings from Ledbetter's book called the Man Invisible and Visible or something. And I hadn't seen this book. and it was the nearest thing I'd seen to what I was seeing. It was the nearest correlation between somebody else's perception and what I was seeing. Because not everybody will see the aura the same way, because we're looking through different lenses, so it's going to be varied a bit,
Okay.
But that was a eureka moment, and then through a whole series of events, I remembered him before I was born, and I think I tell that story at what I call the embarkation parlor before the soul embodies itself, and it was much later on that I realised it was Ledbetter that I'd seen and that was connecting with me. To just help me understand a bit more about what I was trying to do, And he was an amazing character, but yeah. So there is a sort of link. I mean, I'm not pretending I'm daily guided by him or every moment, but certainly he was a discarnate entity that helped me at one point. Yeah, very much so. Very grateful for that.
Paul,
the wonderful thing is you learn you can't do it on your own, don't you?
Yeah. A great question here from Liz. Can you see that, Monique?
Liz Zarepko, could you give a brief explanation of the healing process you use?
Oh, Liz, how long you got, my sweetheart? Eh? No, I'm not. Oh gosh, look, healing is about. Oh, this is such a cracking question.
Yeah, it is.
But it's such a big question as well, isn't it? Let me say this. I'll try and put it in a nutshell. One of the most wonderful things I ever learned as a Catholic was forgiveness. Because you're made to feel so guilty from the day you're born that you have to sort of work out a way of getting out of it. So every Friday you had to eat fish and chips and go and say to the priest, I'm ever so sorry for putting a plastic spider in my sister's bed and stuff like that, And so you go and the priest would say, don't worry, my child, you're forgiven. Then you go back, you carry on sinning for a week, and then you go back and you get rid of them kind of stuff. Well, what I'm trying to say here is that the first article I ever wrote for a spiritual magazine called Two Worlds was on forgiveness. And it wasn't about mediumship, anything like that. And the reason for that was that healing in us is about letting go of the past in one way or another. And until we do that, we will never all be well. And there's no spaceship going to come down and rescue us. There's no ascension going to, change that. Until we let go of the pain and the sorrow and the anger and all of those things that stop us being divine. And so this is why we're having the clear out now on the astral plane. This is why we've got COVID. It's why we've got all this stuff going on. Because healing is about letting go. And this is why when Jesus said sin no more, and you haven't got to be a Christian to believe this, when he said sin no more, what did he mean? Forgive and sin no more. Forgive means let go of the past, and sin no more means don't keep missing the target. Get it right this time, because sinning is an archery term. It means to miss the target. So, that's what we have to do. So all my work is based upon that. Yes, I tune in to forces, try to get on a high frequency and stuff like this, as high frequencies I can. But I work every day at cleaning myself up from negativity, and I have to. And there is not a day goes by, not because I'm a saint, but because I need to. I need to do it. And healing is not just about fixing disease. Healing is creating a flow of health in the individual, a flow of light. Like Lao Tzu said, he that flows as life flows needs no other power. And it's being in that flow of light and power. We are meant to be inspired all the time, not just now and again. Inspiration should be a continuous process in the human being. Wouldn't it be wonderful? Eh? But that's how we're meant to be. And so for me, healing is based upon cleaning oneself up, getting rid of all the negativity, forgiving other people, loving yourself, learning from what's gone on, and then through processes of attunement and meditation, connecting with the divine, because meditation is a form of healing. That's what it comes from, the same word as medical, and it means to make whole. And so I haven't really told you much, have I? But it's about letting go of the rubbish, because everybody has a beautiful light inside them, which comes through the aura, as I say, and that's why we're told to let our light shine before us. Because if we do that, then disease will just burn off us.
Yeah.
And this is why you can't fix someone by just fixing their body. You've got to fix their mind and their soul. Otherwise you just repeat the same thing again. But we can do it, folks, and it's by loving and caring and blessing and serving, and doing the best you can to let go of all the rubbish. It's not easy, but it's simple.
Yeah.
This is not complicated. It's simple, but it's not easy. It takes application and commitment, and recognizing that we're okay people doing the best we can, but we could also do better. And that's the way I treat it, really. I'm only here a long time. My great grand, she used to swear a lot. She had the only swearing budgerigar in North London, and he used to swear, this budgerigar, and she couldn't understand it. And I said, well, it's because you swear. And she used to say to me, well, I won't say the swear word. She was saying, I'm very old, because only the good die young. So it gives you more time to get rid of all the rubbish before you pass through, isn't it? And but it's a bit like a hot air balloon. You've got to get rid of the ballast, otherwise you won't go up.
Yeah.
And the ballast is all the negative programming, memories, pain, all that stuff. And we can do it. We can do it. And then we will heal. And we'll all be all right. But nobody dies. That's the good thing. You know that. So both of you don't die. You just take your costume off and go and have a fag and a cup of tea on another level, and then come back again. So, oh God, I'm back here again. I thought I healed myself.
We've got another quick question, which is, I'm not sure what Carol was referring to, but can psychopaths hide their colour, or could you tell what they are?
They are a psychopath.
I love it when, put it this way, Carol, I love it when people lie to me, darling.
Oh. Yes.
I remember, I love it when people say, I can't make that appointment, because I'm not well.
Yeah.
And I immediately know what's going on. I mean, I don't know everything, but if you could see aura, sweetheart, and you were with, I mean, the word psychopath is interesting actually, because it means someone who is shedding skins all the time. That's what it means. I can generally tell what people are like. It's very useful when you look at politicians. Extremely useful. I did a radio broadcast on Radio 4 BBC, and it was a political program, and I was the fun person. I was the bit of stupid entertainment brought on, But I had a book coming out which was useful, so the publisher got me on. It was a political program, and it had politicians and journalists on it, and of course they would, oh God, what have we got on the program now? And I remember there was a chap called Charles Kennedy, who was at the time, he's dead now, he was leader of the Liberal Democrats, you might remember. And he said, I believe my aura would be golden, sending me up, because that's the colour of my party's logo. And they said, what do you think, Paul? I said, well, put it this way, gold is the sign of wisdom. And I don't see much of that in politics or the House of Commons.
Oh dear.
And it's useful. I don't go around judging people, though. I'm not interested in that. I'm only interested in what it means to me. From my own perspective, what have I got to learn about this person? And there's another important dynamic in this, for me anyway, and that is, if somebody else has got a problem, I've got a problem. That's my fundamental belief. If I meet another human being that's got a problem, I've got a problem too, because we're all connected.
Yeah.
And that's what the parable of the lost sheep's all about.
Mm.
And there's no elitism in spirituality. We're all in it together, lads.
Mm.
Yeah.
And if somebody's straying, even the axe murderer, even the terrorist, we're all in it together.
Yeah.
And so judging is not a very good way of dealing with it. It doesn't mean we should let them run riot in society, but it does mean that we have to try and understand what's really going on in that person. and what's going on in our world that enables a person like that to evolve, you know.
Do that. Yeah.
And we, this is for me spirituality. It's not about me knowing everything. I don't know much at all, but it's about making the world work better and making people understand that there's a huge picture out there and nothing is what it seems.
Yeah.
And we're here to love one another.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Let's hope they do that in Glasgow, you know, this week.
Yeah. Gosh. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. There you go.
Emily Kathleen, she asked, Paul, have you ever experienced a black aura in someone? What would be your representation of this color?
Interesting question. I've been asked that many times. The colors vary in density, in tone and hue, and everybody's got what appears to be black in their aura. Everybody. I've never seen an aura without it. And the reason for that is that we've all been through the darkness somewhere in our past, and we carry those memories that I was talking about earlier. And if we didn't have that darkness, it would make empathy very difficult, because if I need to feel something in somebody, in myself, I need to have that in me as an experience. And so we've all been in the darkness, and we all have bits. I've never seen a completely blank aura. No, even someone like Stalin or Adolf Hitler, they weren't completely black, believe it or not. That might surprise you. Yeah. And many years ago, I spoke to John Humphreys, who was the BBC Foreign Affairs editor, and he'd interviewed Gaddafi and all these people. You know, marvelous guy, John Humphreys. Read his books. Yeah, marvelous guy. And I said to him, you know, you met all these awful people like Gaddafi and Saddam Hussein, and you know, was there ever another side to these people than the monster? And he told a story about, he went to meet Saddam Hussein, a special interview in Baghdad, you know, before the war broke out there. And they took him through this door, and there was Saddam Hussein on his hands and knees with his 3 grandsons on his back, and they were whipping him, and he was their horse going round and, you know, playing with them. And he said, isn't that interesting? You would never think that a monster like that could have that in him, which just goes to show that nobody's all black or dark. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you know, and some people are just clever at being dark as well than others. Some people are more obviously dark than others. And we've all got a bit of darkness in it. I've done bad things in my life, crikey. You know, I'm hardly Mother Teresa. So you know, I don't want to be either, thanks. But yes, you do get patches of black. Of course you do. Yeah. But I've never seen
shouting at referees, Paul, must be something like that, you know.
Well, we've both been referees, haven't we? I've been... I don't shout at referees. I just ask them if they know who their parents are, or whether they've got any optical, you know, any optical problems that they haven't resolved. But that's
moving on swiftly before we have the FA after us. So we have a great question.
That's your coaching badge up the Swanee, anyway.
Yeah. A great question from Natalie Windsor. I believe you know Natalie.
Oh, hi, Natalie.
Paul, is there an exercise or something we can do to remember our own embarkation parlor pre-birth agreements?
I guess
a lot of people will be sitting at home thinking of that question now. What does that actually mean, Natalie?
Well,
pre-birth agreement.
What it is, when we come on the earth, and there's a whole philosophy that says that we don't have complete free will, because there are certain important things in our life, you know, that we have to fulfill and so on. So and sometimes they call it a pre-birth agreement, you know. And I think my relationship with Heartstar may come into that category, perhaps. Your relationship with your own guides might come into that category, perhaps. Yeah. We don't carry the active memory of it once we're born, because we come into forgetfulness, you know.
Yeah.
William Wordsworth, you know, we come into forgetfulness, and so we forget about that. But I'm a great believer in talking to your soul and saying, you know, look, if there's something here that I really have to do, can I please understand what it is? And there's nothing wrong with talking to your soul like that. in a quiet moment, saying, I just want to do what I'm here to do to the best I can do it. And that's all we're ever asked to do, isn't it? And ask your soul, go into your heart here and say, if there's something I need to know about what I'm here to do, please, something I agreed to do before I came, anything like that, please, can you tell me? And every so often do that. And then sit down with a bit of paper and a pencil in the quietness and see what comes to you. You might not get an answer straight away. You may not get an answer in that sense. It may be something happens to you that leads you into something that you're meant to do. It can come. Answers don't always come in a literal sense, as you know, but that's what I would do. But you should know that, Natalie. You've been on lots of my workshops. From Derbyshire, as it were. Yeah. No, but that's what I would do. I something like that, What is there for me? I often say, what have I got to learn still,
Yeah.
Because I carry on supporting Spurs even though they keep losing. So there must be something I've got to learn.
Oh, I'm not
sure. Probably got to buy any more tickets. Does that help, Natalie? Yeah.
I'm so not trying to talk about Norwich. So let's.
I am as well. Let's talk about in Vancouver. What have you got in Vancouver? You got a American football team there in Vancouver, haven't you? Is it the Vancouver Whitecaps or something? Oh no, that's the football team. Vancouver Whitecaps.
BC Lions. I'm not big on sports, but yes, we have plenty of.
You've got a soccer team in Vancouver. Yeah.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Anyway, there we go.
So Natalie just said I posted a thank you.
Good.
I've got one here. I don't know if you can see this, Monique, from Sean.
Sean Louise Erith. Interesting.
What a nice name.
Yeah.
What do you find is the best way for you to cleanse yourself of negative and being able to let go of the past? It's easy peasy. Two things that I do. The first thing I do is in prayer, we're told to ask and it will be given. Okay. So that's petition. Ask and it will be given to you, seek and you will find. So you ask. And this process was developed by a chap called Lester Levinson and became stylized as the Sedona method. But actually, it's none of those things. It's petitionary prayer. And in petitionary prayer, we ask to let go, to be free. And you just ask and ask and ask. And the reason we ask and ask and ask is that the subconscious, which is really the mechanism of the soul, needs continuous nudging to do things. You can't. Reprogramming takes persistence. So you just ask the soul to be free. Can I be free of this? May I let go of this? If you've got commercial coming up, if you go on my website, there are 1 or 2 meditations that include that.
Yeah, I saw that.
As day begins, does particularly. And the other thing to do, I'm going to sound like a clergyman again. There's a lovely thing in one of the Psalms which says, "Enter into his courts with praise and into his gates with thanksgiving," or something like that. And one of the most powerful ways of transmuting is to love and bless everything and everyone that you can, and to express thanksgiving as much as you can. And you'll notice when I do meditations, there's always a letting go part at the beginning, and there's always a thanksgiving aspect at the end. And that is a natural curve for the human being in our present state, to forgive, to celebrate, to connect, and then to be thankful. That is a natural way for us to be. And if everybody practiced that in a nutshell, that's how you do it. But we have to persist with it. You can't just do it on a Friday like I used to when I was a young Catholic boy. It has to become part of your way of life. And the spiritual way of life is what we're seeking, isn't it? A life of love, caring, forgiving, not holding on to stuff. And so there are simple ways of doing it. And I've just done something based on that, on relationships. I'll put on the webpage soon. It's about 14 minutes long, that one. But just ask for permission to let go from yourself. Just speak to the subconscious and ask it, can I be free? May I let go of this? And keep on asking and say, what do I need to learn to really be free? And if you do that persistently, you will get free, because it's the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom, as the book says. I think you ship, aren't they?
Paul, can I just plug your website as well for a sec? We had problems sharing tonight because the broadband signal, unfortunately, is a bit unstable. But
Okay.
on your because you've updated.
It
Your
sounds like the
website.
British government that does.
Yeah.
Unstable. But anyway.
Oh yeah. But you've got you've got a couple of free downloads as well.
Yeah, there's a couple. I'm going to put some more free ones on, and I'm going to mix up some free ones and some that people pay for. Yeah, there's a couple of free ones. I'm going to put another one on about the aura, which will be a freebie as well. And yeah, I'll put a few. My plan is to keep putting them on. I'm going to do some recordings for YouTube when I'm in Scotland in the next couple of weeks as well, because I've not really bothered much with social media, I have to say. But I think I could do that. So I'm going to make do some things for YouTube as well, which will be free. Yeah. So I don't charge much anyway.
I was going to say your even the meditations that you've got on there are reasonably priced, and I do recommend.
Oh yeah.
I've downloaded a couple. I do recommend people have a look at that.
Yeah.
I often give people a free one if they come to see me. I often say, "Oh, I'll download you one. You can use it when you get home." I did it yesterday. Yeah, one has to charge a bit to service the website and things like that, but it's about trying to help people with stuff, but really, no.
Yeah. Well, this evening's been an absolute pleasure, Paul. Thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, we normally do the odd message at the end of.
I've got a message coming through.
Well, we've given our whole.
I can feel it. I've got a message. It's Tottenham 3, Arsenal 0. I can see it. Yeah, it's from Uncle George.
I'm not so confident. You might have that one wrong, Paul. So.
I can feel the vibe. I can feel the vibe, man. Yeah.
Paul, can we ask you one more question, please, before you go?
Yeah.
What next? What's next for Paul Lambillion?
Me?
Yeah.
Death, probably. I imagine. I don't know. I seriously, I'm not being at all, flippant. I'm not intending to be, but I really want to be here while I've got something I can do that's important, valuable to do. And I don't know what's next. I might knock out another book. I want to do a book probably based on some of the better meditations, the themes of those, like forgiveness, acceptance, healing relationships, stuff like that. I will put a bit more occult stuff on there, probably, to do with the auras and the energies a bit more. I think I need to do a bit more of that. And stuff like that, and more recordings, and I don't know. I don't know really. I take it as it comes and try and help people through this crisis. I mean, that for me is pivotal. To in my own little way, to do what I can to give people a focus. And we do this kitchen table meditation, because it's always from the kitchen table on Friday mornings. We were doing it every week. We've done about 50 odd of them now. And they're for half an hour in, the meditation about 20-25 minutes. And if you go on the website, you'll see the dates of them. They're not every week. They're about 2 a month, and they're completely free. And you can just come on and join in the meditation, and then go off, and that's it. And we were giving free recordings of those out to everybody who took part. By the way, we were just pumping them out. I've had to ease off on that because there's a lot of work. But I have good support on that from people that edit it and clean it up and so on. And I think that's the most important thing I do, actually. But yeah, and there's big courses and stuff, and I might write another book. And I did think of taking up belly dancing, actually, as well. I rather thought I could do a kind of Salome thing, with a wig on YouTube. Or either that, or I have this alter ego called what we call a Morag McDuff, who's like a Mrs. Doubtfire figure, And people are daring me to do her on Facebook, on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether I've got the guts to do it. Hello dear, make it with more it's called. But it's just a bit of fun. Anyway, I'll do anything I can that I'm asked to do within reason, and to help people through this period, because it is such an important time for human beings. Yeah. Not just about the virus, much more than that. Much more than that. But this isn't the place to discuss that, probably.
Yeah.
So, have you done with me now?
We have. We can't thank you enough for joining us tonight. It's been a real
pleasure.
Absolutely.
It's been lovely talking to you, and thank you for listening, folks. And I'll see you again soon. So, what do I do? Do I press anything now?
I'm just going to drop you out, but here you go, Paul.
Drop me. You make me sound like an ex-girlfriend or something. Sorry, baby, you're up. God bless you both. It's lovely to see you.
Bless you, Paul. Thank you.
Bye, Paul. So nice to have you. Bye.
Oh, wow.
What a great sense of humor. Wow.
Honestly, Monique, I've known Paul for around 20 years on and off. I've done many of his courses. He really touches you, not just his teachings, but his humor.
Yeah,
I've now got this vision of Paul as a belly dancer.
Very caring man too. You can see that. Very caring. Yeah. So I'm so glad we had him, and great questions to everybody who sent them in.
Yeah,
that's lovely.
Yeah. We thank you for joining us tonight, and we're sorry that we didn't get to the messages, but I felt the interview went so well, and it just the time just flew by.
Yeah.
So thank you everybody for joining us. Monique, I believe it's your turn for the free reading.
Oh, okay.
I've got to do mine tomorrow.
Okay,
perhaps last week. Do you want me to pick a name?
Well, I'll pick one from somebody that I haven't done before.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. I'm looking at Mandy Croxall.
Oh.
Do you know her?
I do know Mandy. So congratulations, Mandy. If you're listening, please get in touch with Monique or myself, and I can send you Monique's details.
Absolutely.
And you'll get a free half-hour reading with Monique.
Wonderful. I look forward to hearing from you, Mandy.
Yeah.
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 Definitely.
So, Monique, next week we are back. This time next week, same time. We are definitely doing the messages, but next week we have Mr. Johnny Fincham on. Some of you may have heard the name, but please look him up. He's a palmist. Is that the right term? Palmist?
Palmistry? That's what I would say. Palmistry.
Palmistry. Again, internationally well-known.
Well, world-renowned. Yeah.
World-renowned, absolutely. So it's an absolute pleasure to be inviting him on Spiritual Talk next week. So get your questions ready, or it's actually going to be a pre-record because of the time difference. So we're going to do, if you guys want to send us some questions in, I can ask. I'm going to do it Monday morning, so if you can send me some questions over the weekend, that would be fantastic, and we'll go from there, and we can bring that within the interview. It'd be brilliant.
Lovely. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one too.
Me too. So I think that's it, Monique, for this week.
It is. Thank you to everybody for coming. That was a real pleasure. That show was amazing. And my cheeks are sore from laughing so hard.
Yeah. I can't remember how much I laughed so much in the interview and smiled so much. It's great fun. Anyway, thank you again, Paul Lambillion, and it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Monique, and thanks everybody for joining us.
Yeah.
And it's time to say goodbye already.
All right.
Take care, everybody.
Everybody.
Bye for now. Bye.